then,
I see a few.
that's gonna be
new
pretty disruptive,
faces
unless they
tonight.
find some, you know what I think they're gonna do is, I think
Would
they're
like to
going
pass
to,
on a few words before we get
I
started.
gotta go, they're starting me, I'll see you.
I'm Wayne McLaughlin, one of the selectmen. I've been for 11 years now. We're not going to allow the meeting to continue like it did the last time we had one. There's going to be no interruptions during the meeting or during the work session. After the work session is over, if you have any questions, we'll be more than glad to take them. But we're not going to do it during the work session, long as we're discussing stuff up here. Just remember what you want to ask, and we'll be more than glad to answer it if we can. At this point, I'll turn it over to the chairman, Horton.
Thank you, Wayne. Again, thank you for coming. It's cold out tonight, and I appreciate all of you that have shown up. I want to hold the question end of it to 15 minutes if I can. If it goes a little longer than that, I guess that'll be okay, but I don't want to be here for an hour and a half, because most of the questions you're probably going to ask tonight, I'm not going to be able to answer. We're still gathering information. The first thing on the agenda is to review the facts paper. I put some of those on that table right there if anybody wants to pick up one to look at. For the committee, the majority of the things that are on this sheet of paper, did you get one?
Oh,
You didn't get one from me in your
no,
email?
the email.
Okay, all right, yeah, I have it.
You got it?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, a lot of this you heard last week to the committee, but I put it on one sheet of paper, which basically are the facts that
Thanks, sir.
the handouts I gave you last week will tell you. From taxation, Hanson pays $8,000 a child. Emden pays $23,371. New Portland $17,694. Solon $12,534. And that's only going to go up as I go further down the list. I'll comment on that. The current tuition rates for RSU 74 is 11,800 K to 8 and 13,300 9 to 12. So if we were in a tuition situation at RSU 74, Emden would save over $1 million. I tally it out about 1.2 million we would get back. Enrollment in RSU 74 in Emden is number 3. You can see in 12 and in year 12, 2012 to 13, there were 703 students in 74. This year, that's 568. Emden had 124, and now it's 93. Tuition, enrollment, I believe will continue to go down. It's been a steady decline for the last 20 years. The state adjusted local contribution says that Emden has to put in, because of our valuation, $1,293,000. Anson puts in $1,085,000. New Portland around $600,000, and Solon $700,000, for a total of $3,697,000. Now that's what's raised locally. That has nothing to do with what comes in from the state or what comes in from the feds. We have debt. There is debt in the system, and it's according to Chuck, I guess a little over $900,000 that Emden owes RSU 74, and that's mainly for the rebuild at the Carabec High School. And that was done around 10 years ago. Most of the interest has been paid. In the future, it's basically principal. It looks to me like we're going to be paying that $56,000 a year for the next 15 years. So we'll get our debt paid. Enrollment. Enrollment is a mystery to me. It jumps all over the place. Right now, it says 541 that the state three-year average is. In the RSU budget book, it's 568. And now there's another mystery that I've come on to, and that's superintendent agreements. We have the gentleman, Ray Poulin here from New Portland, who they're looking at doing the same thing that we're looking to do. Half of the 60 students at New Portland right now are going on a superintendent's agreement to Mount Ingram. And they're paying almost $18,000 a student to go to RSU 74. That's the top of the page. If they were going to Mount Abram without the superintendent's agreement on tuition, it would be a little over $9,000 per student. So it's a major, major savings for New Portland to also move out of the district. And unfortunately, with New Portland, when they move out, the majority of the children are going to go to Mount Ingram. So there's not even going to be any tuition students going, or many tuition students from New Portland going into RSU 74. So that's going to be a loss of 30 students. The other thing that I found out, visiting with the Madison superintendent, there's a fair amount of students from Anson going on a superintendent's agreement to Madison. So, even though it says 541 or 568, those students really in our school district, or are they going to Madison, some of them, and to Mount Abram on superintendent's agreements? Next. Number 7 was what I spoke to last week was Article 13 in the warrant for the school district budget meeting for this particular year. And that is a catch-all for what the state won't pay. The state will not put any money in for sports. They will not put any money in if you have a poor teacher-student ratio. The state has a ratio for K to 8 and 9 through 12 that is rather large, and all of the RSUs in our neighborhood, we don't have that type of population, so we have a number of classes where there's a teacher and 3 kids, or 6 kids, or 10 kids, and the state is saying you should have, I think it's like 15. I'm going back in time when I was on the school board in Madison, but it was something like one teacher to 15 K through 8 and 18 9 through 12, which to me is a very high number today. I know there's a lot of ed tech, but it's a big number to ask a teacher to do today. But if you don't have those, you're going to pay more in on this particular number 7. Now, number 7 doesn't fall into the split for involving the valuation of your time. It is more towards the population of children that you send and a little bit of evaluation. Emden is built around a 45-55 split. 45 for valuation, 55 for students. I don't know the calculation of how they do that. I don't have any idea of the math. That's one of the things that we need to find out as a committee. Now, I'm talking through all of this for the committee. At the end of this, I'm going to ask you if anybody's got any problems with these numbers. Are these solid enough for you? I gave you all the backup last week, so hopefully we're in good shape. Okay, now going up to the number 7 and looking at it, the 877,000, and I just told you that was a 45-55 split. Shortly after the last try failed to withdraw from 74, the board of school board tried to help Emden out by changing that 45-55 split, and a lot of time and energy was put into that. And they actually came up with a formula that would not cost Emden quite so much money. However, it got voted down. The vote had to be done by all 4 municipalities, Portland, Solon, Anson, and Emden. And I think it was rather predictable that no one was going to vote to give Emden a break and they'll pay the bill. And so it failed. And so there's a lesson in that. The only way that Emden is going to ever get any relief from taxation, we're going to have to withdraw. Now that doesn't mean that the students can't go to RSU 74 and just the way it is right now. However, you're going to have to get out because there's no other way to do it that I can see. And here's number 9 is the big problem, and that is the valuation of our town. The current valuation of Emden is $244 million. Next year, when, according to Chuck, he told me next year when the school budget is done, Emden's valuation will be around $450 million. It's going to go up sizably, and only half of the town of Emden has been revalued. The other half has not been. So when that other half gets revalued, and I'm not sure where they are on the 4 lakes, when that gets revalued, that valuation is going to go up. And when that valuation goes up, if you go back up to raise from taxation, that's not the one I want. Number 4, where we're already paying 35%, it's going to be much higher than that. So our cost per student, as the students come down in enrollment and the valuation goes up, it's going to be more and more detrimental to the taxpayers of Emden. Now, there was a lady here last week, she sat right in front of me, and she was a former resident of Newry. Is she here tonight? I don't see her. Does anybody know who she was?
Never seen her in my life.
Or who she is, I should say.
And I asked around.
If anybody could find that out and let me know, I'd appreciate it, because I'd like to pick her brain on what went on in Newry and Bethel. She said in the front that they at one point were paying $150,000 a kid to go through Telstar.
Well, Newry's situation would be similar to what Carabasset Valley's situation would be if Carabasset Valley actually joined an RSU. So part of the reason why Carabasset Valley has never joined an RSU is because their valuation for this area, because of all of the real estate that is there, and the value of that real estate, which is huge, and particularly in the last 5 years, has easily doubled. If anyone has watched prices at the mountain. Newry was paying $150,000 per student to go to the Telstar district. It was like, and they don't have a lot of children in Newry, in the same way that Carabasset Valley doesn't have a lot of children. But they were part of that RSU that is within Telstar. And they were just paying this astronomical amount because of their valuation. So, you know, I have not read all of the particulars about when Carabasset Valley was established and how they formed themselves. And they obviously have limited year-round residents, and they don't have a lot of children in Carabasset Valley, but they have the choice of schools to the extent that there is choice in the area. And, you know, and that, I think, is recognizably the downside of living in a rural area, is that there isn't a whole lot of choice. But Carabasset Valley would easily be in the same situation, if not worse, than Newry in terms of their valuation and what their cost per student would be. And Carabasset Valley has kept their mill rate extremely low and pays tuition to Mount, to what? That's RSU 59, right? 58. Yeah,
I believe they can go anywhere they want there.
I think they can, yeah.
Did she say that Newry
Thank you,
pulled
Beth.
out? I
No,
don't
no
remember.
questions.
There,
Write them down, okay? And we'll get them at the end.
I only got 15 minutes at the end, Paul, so
What's that?
I'm gonna need more than 15 minutes.
She was just asking a clarification about the Newry thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I get some clarification from you?
yeah.
So one is, you said that North New Portland, the majority of the students are going to Mount Abram, or will be,
Half of them are going right now.
and if they withdraw, you think they will all go to Mount Abram? Is that what you're saying?
Ask the first selectman, that's what he
Remains to be seen.
Okay.
told me. Okay.
And you said a number of students from Anson to Madison. How many? Do you have,
She said over a dozen when I talked to her. She didn't have a number.
so was that included in this total?
I don't know.
So there could be a dozen more kids,
But there's
or a dozen
also-
less kids than what's shown in the total here.
That's correct.
Okay.
What's showing in the total here at 568 also includes 20 tuition students that go to SAD RSU 74.
But you don't know if it includes the kids from New Portland who are going to Mount Abram, or the kids from Anson who are going to Madison under principals agreements. Is that correct?
I have to make the assumption that those numbers are in there because RSU 74 is sending the check to pay for those students
Okay.
to Madison and Mount Abram.
And then I have one more clarification, if I may.
No
And-
check.
Part of this is based on a question that, or a comment that was made, I think, in our last meeting, and you just made it again, relief from taxation. But I think the comment was made last week that we can use the money for increasing programs and paving roads. How's that going to decrease taxation?
Well, that isn't our decision here tonight. That will be the decision of the selectmen.
I don't disagree,
Yeah,
but
it's a
that
selectmen-
seems like a bit of a disingenuous presumption that we're going to reduce taxes if in fact we're only going to relocate the taxes and send them somewhere else. That's not a decrease in taxation, and it's semantic, I realize that, but still, I think, I just think we need to be cognizant of how we present things, that's all.
That's correct. The selectmen will tell you that every year when they put the budget together, at least they told me, when they put the budget together, they have to scrimp every year so people's taxes don't go out of sight. And there's things in town that should be done and could be done. Now, I'm not saying that all of the savings would ever go to just pet projects, but there could be a balance. So people would not only see a drop in their taxation, but would see maybe a hot top road, maybe a better situation for the community center. There's a number of different things. But I'm willing to bet that the majority of the money would go to see a drop in taxation. So, but that's a good point.
And I would agree with you, except we can't make that assumption, and if we try to sell any of this on assumptions, then we're gonna get ourselves in trouble, that's all.
Okay.
That's my only point,
Yeah.
Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, fair enough. For the committee, any other questions on this? And the reason why I put this on one page and gave you all the information I gave you last week, this has to roll over into the withdrawal document. Is there anyone here that thinks that this is not a reason to look at the withdrawal? Are they against going forward? And this is for the committee, not for the crowd. Is there anyone here that feels like we should stop right now and say it's not worth the amount of money to move forward and discuss the withdrawal?
I have a question.
Yep.
If for whatever reason, the town, and it went all the way through the end, and the town voted to withdraw, you said the students could still go to RSU 74, is that correct?
That's correct.
For tuition. So it could just be, everybody just goes to school as normal, the school budget is reduced by $1 million, is that what you're saying?
If you remember, I think the other thing I should say, it's that it was $1.1 million, and it's gonna be higher next year.
Right.
We have to face the busing
Right.
issue, and we have to face how we're going to handle superintendent and paperwork. And it's not going to be a sizable amount of money. Right now, at RSU 74 and RSU 59 are sending buses every day to Athens at no charge. And I'll ask the question. Eric, you're doing this issue?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't believe busing is going to be an issue. All of the schools in the area are short of students.
But all of that needs to be fully vetted.
Absolutely, and that's
I mean,
what comes
that's-
next.
Right.
Yeah.
That 100% needs to be vetted for everyone.
Okay, so everybody in agreement to move forward?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay. So now we go to number two, number three now, number two. Start review of the withdrawal petition. And there's some people here that were not here last week, and I'm sorry I did not bring more of those. Next week I will, so you'll be able. How did you folks find the reading?
Some of it I didn't understand the language of it, so I have a few question marks here and there.
Yeah.
Wasn't too sure what it actually was talking. It speaks in legal.
Well, it's
I'm not a
legislative.
lawyer. I'm not a
Neither
lawyer.
am I.
so
Yeah, I mean,
decipher that.
I'd say it's legislative language. That, is difficult to read, but we do have a former legislator on the committee.
And you find that legislators don't write the language, the revisor's office does.
All right.
That's why it's so complex.
Yeah.
I found it very difficult as it jumped around. You seemed to be in one place, and then you left, and in 3 pages further, you're back there again. The one comment I would make to the committee, I'm not willing to do anything for a vote until we've answered all of the questions like you just brought up, busing. I don't know how we could, as a committee, recommend a vote on anything unless we can tell you exactly within a very high percentage of doing it, exactly what's going to happen. And anybody out there that's got children, you need to expect that. The only thing right now I think I'm comfortable in saying is all of the schools need students. They need the students. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
Okay. We have another, you agree also. Okay, so, want to start and go down through it?
Can I ask one question before you hit that?
Yeah.
When I read through this whole thing, it sounded like it was talking about two completely different votes. Is that correct? It sounded like there was a vote that would be done, like if this committee agreed to go forward, the town would have to vote, and then it seemed like there was another vote after that. But you mentioned voting in the beginning of this thing, and then again in the end, very detailed voting type specifics, so I wasn't sure.
I think it's the same vote.
Oh, that's where the jumping around
Yes,
is.
that's the jumping
I'm
around.
like, what?
I'm not asking a question, I did read through that, and it is 2 votes. So you get your 10% of
Right.
registered
It
voters,
is 2
voters sign the petition, and then you present your findings, and then registered voters vote on that. Then after that, you actually do all of the research, you work with the district, you get all of that information, and then you do another, like a town meeting, where it's all presented and then there's
That's
votes.
what it read like, there were 2 votes. isn't it?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's the second smaller committee
Yeah,
that Chuck
yeah,
mentioned
right.
at the last
Yeah.
meeting. Yep.
Right.
That's what it sounded like, there was a second committee which we knew about, then it looked like there was another
Right.
vote after that too in the town. I wanted to make sure I understood this language.
Okay, well, a lot of the stuff in here that is supposed to take place, I guess, for the second vote, I'm not comfortable unless this committee here is pretty sure of what's going to happen before the first vote, because I don't feel comfortable in asking people to put their trust in us if we don't have things taken care
So
of.
that Facebook page, that I'm sure everybody up there hates, I did summarize that on the Facebook page. Chuck had emailed me those links early on. And so what I did to make it easier for people is I did summarize what you just handed them, and it's a lot easier to read, all summarized bullet points. So it's on the first page, it's hidden deep in them. So you gotta go back, take the first one.
Hidden.
Well, just because it was the first one. Yeah, it's not really hidden, it's just farther down.
Well,
What was your
I
question?
mean, before anything even commences, I mean, obviously, we're a committee who's reviewing the numbers that have been presented tonight, what our options are with other districts in the area, potentially. But before any of that happens, obviously, we need to do a lot of review, and a petition would need to be circulated. And there are very specific rules around that petition. You know, the numbers that you need to have sign a petition in order to be able to even present for a vote. So there's still very preliminary work that would need to be done before even vote number 1 would happen. So we're not even to that point of petition.
there are a number of communities that have gone through this. One being Stocks, another one being Carrollton. I believe West Forks pulled out 2 of that, but I'm not sure of that. Athens pulled out of Madison. So my hope is that the state, and we finally made contact with a lady down there this week, will give us a document that they accepted. So we will have a straw man to go by as we're talking around what this withdrawal thing needs to look like. And I'll also get clarification on everything up to the 3rd vote too. I just don't understand why they do that, nevertheless. Any other questions starting out here? Okay, so we do need to get 10% of the last governor's election to sign a petition, and I believe that's 50 people to sign a petition. And I believe that at least for one vote in here, we have to have 50% of the people that voted vote, so we'd have to have 250 people show up to vote. Then when you go, now
Can you just explain where
Wait
you're
a minute, I
starting
don't think that's right.
from?
I don't think that's correct.
I don't think that's.
you go over to,
Is it 50% of the people that show up?
it's on the top of 696, required vote.
That's the latest.
But that doesn't make any sense because you could kill it by simply not having people show up
I
to vote.
believe-
That's not correct.
I
Yeah.
believe it's 50% in favor of it.
Right.
You can't, it's like how they do the, like the ranked choice voting now, you know, like you need a certain percentage to have it.
50% or more, that's right.
Of people attending the meeting.
People at the meeting, 50%.
Right. It's
Must
not
equal or exceed 50% of the total number of votes cast.
Right.
It's not 50%
Percent
of
of
the,
the town.
Say that again, Larry, I lost you.
Before, I'll read it right from the beginning.
Yeah, it's 50%.
Before the municipality may withdraw from the regional school unit, the withdrawal agreement must be approved by a majority vote of those casting valid votes in the municipality, and the total number of votes cast for and against withdrawal at the municipal vote must equal or exceed 50% of the total number of votes cast in the municipality for governor at the last gubernatorial election.
Okay, we need to find out how many registered voters.
Right, which is all part of public record
and the petition requires 10%
of the
of
last
the last
gubernatorial
gubernatorial election.
election to have been, for people to have signed that petition. So if 500 people voted in 2022, which was the last gubernatorial, the petition would need 50 signatures.
All set with that?
Yeah.
And for the purpose on the front page, I don't believe that has anything to do with us. I read that a number of times, and I think it's different. We have no school, no, we don't have no buildings or anything like that, or it just didn't seem right.
No, that did not seem applicable.
Yeah.
No, that's not unfortunate.
Same at the
Right.
top of page 2.
Correct. Because we're not a single municipality within the regional school unit.
Yeah, we're not. So.
Now, down at the bottom, 4A, that's when it breaks out to a 4-member
Right,
committee.
right. At the point that there is agreement for withdrawal notice, change in agreement, and final agreement, that is when we go to that 4 committee.
But it's after the first vote.
Correct.
After the first vote. Could be
Correct.
like one parent, one member, one school board member.
Right, and it's very specific in
Yeah, I got it all.
who those members are.
Okay. Over on 3, that's where you get in the meat of the work that you've got to do. I think we should do is to satisfy all of those things as much as we possibly can before we start having breakout groups come in to hear what we anticipate will take place.
I'm sorry, Paul, I'm having difficulty hearing you speak at all, and I'm trying hard to listen.
You're
So we all,
you're probably the first person in the world that's ever told me.
no, we're all, you're very quiet.
You can hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll talk loud. Can you hear me now?
Appreciate it
Okay,
very much.
if I drop down, tell me again, okay? I'm sorry.
Which 3 are you on? You're
I'm on page 3, 3 of 9.
Page 3. Yeah, gotcha. I'm looking at the
Is
number 3.
there something other,
I was good with that. This is all after the original vote. This is the second vote.
no, this is before, yeah. it's before the original vote, but after. Yes, all of these things need to be answered before, in my mind, before that first vote.
Oh, okay, so you're saying these items which are listed after the first vote, will need to be set aside first?
Yeah, I'm not gonna ask
Probably
anybody
makes
to
sense.
come here and vote without the answers to these questions. I think that would be a waste of time
Yeah.
for us. And as I read down through it, it's just very common sense. You know, you need to be able to tell the inhabitants of the community what the plan is for what's going to happen with the students. And they're around the 5-year, you can't do something that within 5 years is going to cause the state to have to spend when number 3 is you cannot suggest or vote on something that would require a RSU to have to build a new school. All right, so we have, that's not going to happen. We would be looking, number 2, we would be looking at the end of the 26-27 year before we would be able to move on. Because we have until November, the end of November, I believe it is, this year to have all of this done, if we're going to do it. If we don't get it done by November 30th, it has to go to the next one, and then instead of being at the end of the school year in 27, it would be end of the school year at 28.
Well,
And-
what do you mean by having everything done by the end of this November?
The withdrawal process completed,
The entire process?
the whole process has to be
And the town
completed.
voted and everything's approved.
I know you.
We did, we met a couple of times.
Did you used to rent Paula's house?
I did.
I thought I did. Warehouser did.
First year.
The,
It's mandated for the first year, but they can do it, but is that in a section, subsequent?
that's not the transportation,
I just think.
as you just said. Okay, number 5 is comes down to really one of 2 ways that we would handle something like this. And that is I'll use Caratunk as an example. Caratunk hired a superintendent and a bookkeeper for 1 day a month. They go to Caratunk and they take care of all of the paperwork for the students in Caratunk that go to Valley High School, Valley School System. That's one way to do it. I don't believe Emden could get away with 1 day a month because we have a lot more students than what there are at Caratunk. But we're going to need somebody at the state to direct us on what they think we would need if we go in that direction. The other way to go is what I quote unquote call a mother district, a mother RSU. Someone that would step up and say to Emden, we will take all of the majority of your children and we will supply the superintendent and all of the things that the state requires. That's the simplest way to do it. And there are school districts out there that will do that. And that doesn't mean that if it was a different mother school than RSU 74, children could still go to RSU 74 on tuition.
Would they need a superintendent's agreement?
No, because it would be tuition period. That would be no superintendent agreement.
So there is no obligation, there is no obligation from the town to provide a specific number or a certain number of students, a minimum number of students going to another school?
That would have to be in the
Okay.
negotiations with that school. Um, And it would end up in the negotiations with the school on the busing too. If the school is further away, they're not gonna be able to do it for free. I don't think they'd be able to, but we can try. So we've got some work to do there to flesh out just what is available out there for superintendents, number one. Number two, what, how many days a week or month we're going to need for that superintendent to do the work that's necessary to meet state requirements. And we're going to have to, it's Regina Campbell that does Caratunk, and the Franzosi gal that works at
Carla?
Carla. Franzosi goes to Caratunk with her to do that. But we have some work to do there. Number 6, it gets back to the financial commitments. Any questions there?
I think we reviewed earlier, because this covers the agreement, must make provisions for the distribution of financial commitments. We covered that earlier in the fact sheet.
Yep.
Okay.
And number 8 is around the collective bargaining agreement. We do not have a school in Emden now, so there's no collective bargaining agreement that we have to worry about. Contract rights, there's no issues there. And I don't believe number 10 would be for us because we have no assets in RSU. I have been told that if, for example, RSU 74 immediately takes on a new project that's going to spend $5 million, we would have, and we withdrew from RSU 74, we would have some ability to not have to pay all of that because we are not going to be using it. So I expect that's going to cost money. It'll probably be a lot of it.
So once again, it would need to be.
We don't have anything that expensive on the drawing board.
No, because I will be anxious to hear from George regarding the committee that he sat on.
Why don't you give us a
The meeting.
Okay,
committee?
the budget proposals or possibilities that came up at the meeting yesterday with the Building and Grounds Transportation Committee meeting, they had 3 different items on the docket. One was a school security upgrade as a possibility where they wanted to pump $178,000 cost for the high school, $156,000 for CCS, $87,000 for Garrett Skank, and $66,000 for Solon. Those are on the high end. It's about $500,000. Basically, that it would be upgrading all of the key card systems in because they said control of the keys in the school system is just it's everywhere right now. Keys are everywhere in schools, and this would provide cameras, security cameras on all doors, upgraded key system, and lockout possibilities. The next item was to replace rugs with tiles in both Garrett Skank and Solon. I guess there's a lot of issues with old carpeting that is as old as the building in some of these, and its floors are uneven, and there's trip hazards, mold issues possibly. A lot of stuff came out, and that's like a $95,000 to $120,000 type project. The last one is they talked about a possible huge storage building. It sounded like a house going up on the high school ground somewhere for another $257,000 for that. There was no votes on any of this stuff. It was just brought up as possibilities. Troy Dumfrey mentioned a few times that I'd like to try to maintain the school, the work budget similar to what it was last year, which is like $1.25 million or something to that effect. 1.5. He didn't want it to jump, he didn't want it to get out of control, so. They're trying to from what I got out of it, they're trying to maintain, and some of these things might have to come in subsequent years. They can't do all this in 1 year, they know that, but that's what came out, so.
Did they talk about taking this money out of surplus or
They
raising it?
didn't mention where that was gonna come from. I didn't hear where that money was gonna come from. It was just what was on the budget from the gentleman there that's working for the school system, was all over facility renovations and stuff like that. He had these, he'd like to do the security upgrade all at one shot, like I said, about $500,000, because he feels if they do all of that, it would be a bigger bang for the buck, the price would be a bit lower. If they do it school by school and piecemeal it, it might cost more. But
Was there any mention of what the storage building was for, or what it may replace?
there's just no storage in the school at all for a lot of stuff apparently, and they need some kind of a big storage unit there.
They just built a building a few years ago, and I think they bought 5 or 6 Connex
Storage unit
Trailers?
size.
during
Yeah,
COVID.
they got the trailers back there.
Connex trailers.
Storage unit, what did they say the size of that thing was gonna be? 40 by 60 with a frost wall, an attic full trusses above for complete upstairs storage too. So they didn't mention what was gonna go in there, but at the same time, they were talking about making CCS a warming shelter, and actually a shelter for crises, but they have nowhere to store beds and cots and blankets and all that other stuff. That's
There's
CCS.
federal funding for that.
So anyways, they didn't say what that storage was for, they just said we need a 40 by 60, they want to do a 40 by 60 storage unit. Like a cement slab.
But none of this is like, they're just talking.
It's just money for the school, money that goes to the school, which impacts the taxes. We don't know what our liability might or might not be.
You guys have
I
got
was
to
just gonna
protect
say, if it's a
that.
subcommittee, they're just throwing things around right now. It hasn't even gone to the school board. I haven't heard about
Yeah.
these
There was
except
no
in
voting,
passing,
they
so
just
there was
brought
no
it
voting
up
anyway at
there.
a subcommittee.
Bills.
Yeah. Very pie in the sky right now.
I'm on that subcommittee. I didn't make it to the meeting last night. But there has been talk of that storage building is running out of storage.
They need to get rid of some of the junk. I'll walk around
They
with
do
you.
need to get rid of some of the junk. And they talked about having a boosters, and part of that building selling food for soccer, baseball, softball, incorporated within that building.
Where are they gonna put it? Right in the middle of the ball field?
Out there somewhere, it was the talk, but like I said, they're just talking at this point, nothing's been decided. They're just trying to utilize it to the best that they can.
Counting on you. Now we're getting into I'm not sure what. It's going back into the voting. I'm going to attempt to get a meeting in Augusta with the lady that supposedly is there to help us, and maybe entice them to come up here for a meeting and to walk us through some of this stuff.
I think it would be to the benefit of this committee, for all of us to hear,
Be it that.
Yeah.
for either all of us to attend in Augusta or to have that person come here to speak. I'd really like to hear from them directly, Paul. I think it's important for the process, for us to know, and all of us to have our questions, because we all come from a little different background. I think, we all have a little different creativity about us. People talk to us individually, get us thinking in different ways, and, we all have questions.
Fine with me, if everybody wants to take time to go.
Yeah.
If they, I'll be very surprised if they'll agree to come up here now before a petition is up. But I don't think we should be asking people to sign a petition if we haven't got some other stuff to keep tied together.
Correct.
Exactly.
And, you know, if they're not willing to come here and we're not all willing to go there, well, you know what? We all conducted business through COVID on Zoom and everything else. There are these ways to get things done that doesn't mean 2 hours of windshield time. So, you know,
Make that
it's,
work.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There's another person in Augusta that I really need to get some information from for this committee, and that's how the math works on this valuation. What's going to take place next year if it's going to be 450 million instead of 244 million?
What would that turn into dollar and cents?
Yeah.
We need to know.
Could one of you get the math at RSU 74 on how they conduct that 45-55 split?
You look into it.
Do you know how they do it, or what they do? What Razzmatazz gives us the
He says she did.
$77,000.
I think I can vaguely explain it to you, is that it is split between enrollment and property values. And there's a formula that I don't know, but that is how it's.
We need the formula.
That's what we're on.
We need to know what they're using for the amount of students. We need to know what they're using. Because the students are all over the place. From
Gotta
Golden
be
Green.
written down somewhere.
Sure, there's some right there.
You're the vice chair of that board.
I am.
You should be the one.
You did it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We make, the numbers make more sense to us than they do. It's just a number on a piece of paper.
So can you have that for us by next week, by our next meeting?
I would think so.
And then another question that came up, I think it was Larry, did you find out how they count superintendent agreements? Are the students that are going to come out of to Madison, are they 568, or are they above that, or
Yep.
what's going on? Okay.
Yep.
Any other? Where are we?
Well, you said you left up to, kind of brought us up to the second vote process.
If you go over to the top of page 6, that's where we bring the 50%.
Yep.
Let's say in number 10, that if we petition for a withdrawal and then we don't go through with it, or it's voted down, we can't try again for 2 years.
Right.
On number 16 on page 8, once again, we're talking about debt. For the second or third slide. I assume that we would continue to pay our debt on a yearly basis. Would you all agree with that?
I would assume
I would agree.
we're responsible for all that debt.
Right.
And 18, if the commissioner is not happy with the 4 people that we send down to talk with them, they can fire them and replace them, and we'd have to replace them with somebody else. Number 19 is an interesting one, transfer of property. This basically says that the regional school board may negotiate with the withdrawal committee regarding equitable division of regional school property. The key word is may. If it's up to the school board of RSU 74, I think we'd have to have a very, very good argument for may to turn into we will. So it's there. It gives somebody that's pulling out an opportunity to discuss it, but they have, I think, the right to say no. Is that how you read it?
I'm not sure what that refers to. Transfer of property?
I think that refers to like when Emden withdrew, when we combined, Emden owned the school.
Right.
And then when we joined the district, I think there had to be transfer agreements. This is just the inverse of that. They had transfer agreements that said that the school goes, that the school property becomes RSU property, I guess, and then reverts back to the town if we withdraw. I think that's what that means. But I don't see that there's any, Emden has no interest in any of the outlying buildings, I mean, other than what we've been paying.
Right,
There's none of it on Emden soil, so
right.
it would seem that shouldn't be an issue.
You don't have any property that's.
Right, it's a transfer.
Yeah. No transfer. Unless it's our interest in what's, I mean, we were using the school right now as a grammar school, and that was an issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this building interest.
Yeah.
Well, that's about it. Anybody got any other questions around that withdrawal document? Any suggestions how we can tackle that? Mainly, it's three. We need to put together some type of a program to share with the community before we ask them to sign a petition. I will make an effort this week to try to get an appointment or a Zoom is good idea with that lady. The gentleman at the evaluation.
Who is this person in Augusta affiliated with? Are they the Department of Education? Okay.
Department of Education. Chuck's done all of this. That's Chuck's. Pamela Partridge from Department of Education. The numbers guy.
Pam Partridge was Hanson.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I can't Sorry. Can't hear anything.
I think part of our due diligence, Paul, is to answer any questions. If they submit them in writing,
Can't hear
part of sort of wrapping this up is having answers to the questions that they've submitted, that the general public has submitted. What do you think? I mean, I'm throwing it out there.
That's a good point. questions that came up at the one. 2014.
Sticky things.
Could you speak up, please, a little louder? Appreciate it.
All of us?
Yes.
Yeah, we can't hear
Yes.
anything.
Not just me?
No,
Everybody's very.
You know, there is a small portable PA system they have here. I would recommend you use it in future meetings. It's very difficult to follow what you guys are saying. Just put the microphone on the table and, you know, it picks stuff up.
So Paul, where did the potential questions come from?
Where do these come from?
That came from the last go-around in 13, 14, 15.
Oh,
Oh, okay,
These
all
were-
right,
These were given to me by Chuck,
excellent.
and
I think a lot of the questions potentially are gonna end up being similar.
sounds like a lot.
I mean, you know, thinking back on, how much will we, okay, so, you know, without looking at this, will my kids have to travel further? You know, will Emden save money by withdrawing from the RSU? Will it cost us more money? What will, you know, all of those potential questions, I think, a lot of them, you know, as I glance through here, will we still vote on a school budget for our new school year?
I would guarantee they're all the same.
Yeah, I'm gonna,
You know, I'm just saying.
I
that.
can't imagine that they probably change a whole lot over time. Number 6, who will be on the withdrawal committee? You know, can our kids stay in RSU 74 if we choose to keep them there? Number 1, how much money will we save leaving RSU? So, you know, I think these are good questions to consider. that-
next meeting, I'll have a handout for you with all the questions. How's that?
Yeah.
For our questions to give to you, or questions you're giving to us?
Now I can't hear you.
You're gonna have a handout for questions you're giving us, or for us to give you our questions?
I'm going to share with you
Give you
what
a
the
copy of this.
questions were
Okay.
11 years ago.
So can we work that two ways, Paul? Can we get a list of questions
From that.
from them? Because I'm sure they're going to be redundant questions, but there also may be some specific questions that a parent has. And I'm all about transparency. I think we need to make this as transparent as we can. You guys be okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what in the meeting that
So
both
who,
of us were at last time, that was, I said it would be helpful if we wrote down additional questions you know.
Yeah.
and how are
Right
you
among
going to
verses.
glean those questions? How are you going to gather those questions?
Committee. I mean, really, it's your job, right? To reach out to the community and like find out the impact it would have, or what concerns or questions?
I understand that, and my question is, we've already done that. That's really what this was. Can you guys want to get a list of questions for us?
I think it's important to get questions from the current community.
Yes,
Those are
so do I.
questions. I'm sure that there will be repetitious questions from 11 years ago, but there are people in the community with children that weren't here 11 years ago.
Exactly.
So-
I guess I didn't make myself clear when we would like to get a list of questions from you.
How are you gonna get it?
How do we get them from you?
Email them to somebody on the.
Well, no, if you've got
How about we do
a
this?
collection
Here's
point.
Bring them all with.
Here's an idea. We give you this list. Go through it. If you'd like to add to it, feel free. I don't know, because I mean, I think this is a good starting point, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all about not reinventing the wheel,
Yeah.
Sure.
right? Like, why do that? So if there's already a good framework of questions,
I have a question for that question. Would it be okay if we asked other parents that I know can't be here? I mean, childcare is a big issue.
Of course.
I know a lot of parents that want to, so can we ask around and add other, like, and
Absolutely.
put it out there and try to get a larger,
That's a
broader,
great
because I'm
idea.
sure there's a lot of parents who have really lived different lives. And they want to
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
idea.
but I mean, I think if you just wanted to use something like this and
As a starting point.
as a starting point,
Sure. Can we leave with a copy?
yeah,
Love it.
So who's going to be are you going to be the contact lady?
sure.
Okay, so you will make sure that we get a list. Okay, excellent. That's perfect.
Perfect.
And can we have them next week as well? Do you think, or does that give you time to get them together? Yeah, okay, good, thank you.
That will save you some time if you know what the questions are on there, and if you guys have the same one, you can just, okay, that one's there, or maybe you modify it. It doesn't have a specific detail you want on it.
I don't have a question, I have a comment.
I'm sorry.
Can you wait?
Are you open yet? Because you're already starting
We're
dialogue.
not open yet.
All right.
Just give me a few minutes, we're moving on. Is there anyone here that would volunteer to look into the availability of superintendents and administrative assistants for part-time? I was led to believe that there's a bench of people that do that, mostly retirees that will come to small communities and do the work.
I believe you also have to hire a special ed director.
Can the superintendent also be the special ed director, or does it have to be three separate entities?
I believe it has to be three separate.
It does?
And also another thing you should look at is how many students Emden has in special ed. Because if we have any students that are out of district, it could cost $40,000 to $50,000 per student.
And you have to provide specific special transportation in a lot of cases to get them to a school.
And that is very expensive in district, let alone
Yep.
withdrawing from the district.
But that can change, can I address him directly? That can change in a heartbeat,
Oh, yeah.
because you could have a family move in with 2 or 3
Yep.
special needs kids,
That's
and,
$150,000, right?
yep,
And
Plus any lawyer fees that have to do with this withdrawal too.
from my understanding, there has been a number, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but there have been a number of families moving in just very, very recently.
25% of RSU 74 is considered, has some type of special need, whether it's behavioral or not. At least that's what I was told by.
they have IEPs, or are they?
Something like that. I
Yeah.
don't know exactly, that was what an administrator told me last week, 25%, yeah.
Like a 504 or an IEP falls under special education services.
And then you can set up, you can gear up for those families, and then they can be gone in 2 days. So you've got that expense sitting there, so.
If anyone has questions before they leave here, while people are here, that they just want to write on the back of that, that way I can get some of you guys before you even walk out the door tonight. Feel free.
Any questions before? No? You're all set? Okay, do you want to open it up?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, whoa, let me back up. Who wants to take on the job of superintendent?
Oh, availability of superintendent?
Where does one find that? Is that the DOE?
Oh, no. Do you want to wait on that after we talk to that lady?
I do know a superintendent or previous superintendent who has done that kind of work. He was a superintendent in Freeport, and he was a superintendent in Harpswell, and he was in that part-time role for some small districts, so,
Regina does it,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think Mike Tracy did it. He did it for Highland Plantation.
Has Highland always been on their own, or were they part of 74 or 58?
You know what,
I think they were part of
I think they
74
were
at one
part of
time.
74 originally.
Lexington was too, I think.
Lexington's an unorganized township, I think, and they come under they come under an unorganized township, and they're actually governed by the taxation committee and the county government, so.
So you check. with
Yeah.
that. I know have some answers there that we need to see. Now,
Well,
I'm quite
never know.
sure that Mrs. Patrick is not going to work overtime. So is everybody
I mean, I do work full-time, so it would need to be a, you know,
Plenty of notice.
probably a week's notice.
Okay. Anything else before we open it up? Well, one more thing. We're running into stuff right now where we're going to have to split up and grade and do things.
Yeah.
Is it necessary to have a meeting next week? But,
Big question.
Hmm?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think,
I was wondering whether we needed a meeting
Next
next week.
week.
Why
I'm
don't,
wondering if we're necessary to
They're
meet,
trying to decide if they're gonna meet next week.
why don't,
because we have a lot of digging and a lot of work.
Your
that needs to be
secret is
done.
important.
Well, they just don't want everybody to show up.
They tried to trick us this week.
Well, we're gonna let you show,
I
up,
think
but we're
it-
not
I
gonna
think
show.
we
up.
would
You don't have
be-
a choice
I think
as to
it would
whether I show
be
up at then.
wise, given that we have, you know, I have this assigned, I do work full-time on top of part-time, on top of part-time, so, you know, let's just say my calendar's full most of the time, so for me to take on an assignment, I need a little bit of time, so I think 2 weeks from now would be
2 weeks from now?
good.
No, I-
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go back to Wednesday nights at 6:30, and would this be too many people for over the other room, or do you wanna stay here? That's for you guys to,
I think keeping it available so if more people want to attend or can attend.
okay?
Okay, I will say this, yoga happens here on Wednesday nights
Sweet.
from 5:30 to 6:30.
Bring my mat.
We're gonna have to keep it down now.
Well, and I'm just gonna say, you do not come walking in on that at 6:15, because I'm part of that group.
Is it hot yoga?
I'll wear my stretchy pants. Sorry.
You come right along, you're
Yeah.
invited.
Perfect.
You can lead the class.
That's right.
So the meeting is
So
not Wednesday,
Iggy, 6:30?
February.
I don't think we can do 6:30.
We cannot do 6:30 here.
Just 7 o'clock.
Or do we go to Thursday nights?
Wanna go to Thursday?
Yeah.
I'm personally better with Thursday nights, so I can come do my yoga on Wednesday nights and not have to go running over there.
We're going Thursday at 6.
Yeah.
Thursday would be the
All right.
6th.
I know what
The
that is.
6:30 Thursday nights now at 6:30 here. And anybody that got confused about why it went from Wednesday to Thursday this week is we had people that couldn't show up on the committee, and we changed from Wednesday to Thursday, and let me tell you, it screwed up my schedule too, because I had Wednesday set aside and I had business that I was supposed to keep in mind.
Yeah, me too.
So-
So you're saying now Thursdays?
We're gonna stay on Thursdays at 6:30. I believe,
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
6th of February.
and, I think our meetings will go an hour and a half, no more. And then at the end of every meeting, we'll give 15 minutes. If it takes a little longer, I can stand for questions. Okay? Any questions from the floor? Yes, sir.
As I said, I don't really have a question, I have a comment. And the comment is, I was on an ordinance committee about 2 years ago, and the town at that time had 550 registered voters, so we needed a petition of 55. I'm looking around, we have 18 people here, not including the committee or the camera person. That's an incredibly low number of people for an incredibly important topic. I learned about this meeting tonight, I wasn't here last week. I learned about this from a friend of mine who lives in Florida, who talked to somebody up here and mentioned the meeting. You guys need to get this information out to the community now, so that people aren't hit with this at the last minute, and they become informed and they can ask questions or raise issues. Because the number of students we have here is pretty disproportionate to the amount of taxes you're paying, which I know is why you're doing this. But everybody, whether they have kids or not, pays taxes. And being asked to pay disproportionately high taxes is ridiculous, even for the, especially, you know, for the parents too. We need to get this out. This is an important issue. I didn't see anything about it on Emden Community Connection. I didn't see anything about it on Emden Pond Association. It is on the billboard over here, but the billboard cycles. You know, if you're driving by at 45 miles an hour, you don't see it. It's great to get it on the billboard.
It was not easy.
Well, and the clerk didn't send any information, because I'm on that as well. So this information isn't getting out to the community, whether they're parent, and I understand parents have issues, and probably more would be here, but for childcare and other issues. But there's a hell of a lot of taxpayers that, you know, their kids are grown and gone or don't have kids, this is going to fall on their shoulders, and they know nothing about it.
We discussed that last week.
Okay.
On here.
Well.
One of the things I think the committee is going to strive to do is when we get ready to have a petition, we'll have numerous meetings.
Okay.
Break down the families with the 93 or 83 kids to come in maybe groups of 25 or 30. And so there's some people that they don't like to speak in public, and they get nervous. I don't want to fill the gymnasium and then expect everybody to stand up and say what they want to say. We'll break it up into smaller groups. Once we get through the students and the parents of students, then we can go to alphabetically, maybe 4 meetings for the.
I will say this, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, and I will say this to that, is that I think within the community, it's really important for both sides to hear the other side. You know, so it's important for, you know, I don't have children, and I have lived in Emden since 1998. And I've paid taxes the entire time, you know, we've been property owners. And, you know, and it is getting to be a heavier burden every year. But it's also important for me, and, you know, and I feel like I'm paying more than I want to. But it's also important for me to hear from children. But I think it's important for those folks to be in the same room together.
Well, we have to have one big meeting at the end before we do anything on a
It
vote.
does say there should be a town meeting for the
Yeah,
first
there has to
petition
be
vote
a
too.
town meeting for
Oh, yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
Definitely a town.
Yeah.
But I think what this gentleman is saying is like, it's important to get this information out now.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he would have been here last week.
So people can
if-
show up.
And so people can show up and be a part of like listening
Of the
to
whole
the
process.
conversations, the
Yeah.
whole process.
So how do you suggest we do that? It's being on the bulletin board, it has been on the Facebooks, all over Facebook.
Well, that's because
Community
of the
Connection
parents.
twice.
Doesn't matter because of who. That doesn't matter. How do we get the information out?
Yeah, okay.
Every week.
Wouldn't a simple suggestion just be
Yep.
the town office make up a mailer
Yes.
and mail it to people? Like in New
What's
Portland,
the
we have what
cost,
they call a New
what's the
Portland.
cost to mail it?
We'll put notes on it. But if you want to get it out there, it's going to cost you a few bucks. But that's the ultimate way to reach as many people as you can, because a lot of the elderly aren't going to be tech savvy. They're not going to give a shit about getting on the computer to try to find something.
Right.
They'll
I mean,
get
I
up in
can have
minutes. This is the best way. That's something in New Portland. We have a monthly newsletter. Monthly, it costs us yearly, it's $5,400 to send out a 3-page newsletter. So it ain't going to cost the town that much to send out a few envelopes with this in it. That would be my suggestion from another town's perspective.
So from a selectman standpoint, what do we need to do to get that authorized? Because this isn't an ad hoc board, we don't have any authority to spend money.
We got a meeting the first of the month, about first Thursday of the month.
First Thursday of the month?
And you can't expect the communication to go out via Facebook, you can't expect it to go email, because not everybody has Facebook.
Correct.
Not everybody has email.
Correct.
I mean, I have the same problem with the Lions Club in New Portland, that even to communicate with members, it's impossible, because everybody's got different communication situations.
Right.
That is the only way, a
Can't
mailer
have
would be the only
excuses
way to
not
hit
to
everybody in the
communicate.
town. That would be the only way to get everybody, because of the,
And might I
Text it.
suggest one other thing, if that goes through, is a short bullet point, you know, your average resident is not gonna wade through this stuff. You need a short bullet point, something that maybe hits a few of the more general questions. You know, I know you've still got a lot of answers to have to come up with that are very specific, but a bunch of general just some, like a fact sheet that says, here's the issue, here's why we're proposing this, this is what's going on. And then let them formulate from that. If they want to go, great. But it always concerns me when I see how few people turn out for these meetings on all these issues, and you wind up with 20 people voting on something for 1,000, town of 1,000 people. Makes no sense, really.
We have to
Yeah, I
promote
know.
the
It's
transparency.
depressing, is what it is.
It's kind of that, isn't it, the job of the committee to promote it,
I know.
or no,
I would agree with you.
right?
Yep.
It's a good, great idea.
That's why
Yep.
We gotta get the town to
it's not our job to promote the transparency, that people are aware of this.
The town can do a bulk mailing through the post office for really steep, discount. It's bulk mailing, they have to be a business, which, I'm sure that the town has that ability, and it's incredibly,
Wayne, can we bring that up at the selectmen's meeting, that we can spend that money to do that?
To do what?
They want to do a mailing, they want a mailing to go to every household, but we're not authorized as a committee to spend any money at this point, so.
I asked Chuck about that, he said that that was money to do that.
Okay, good,
Well, that's good, yeah.
perfect.
So we just need to put together a simple fact sheet that says, here's what's going on, this.
I was going to wait before the meeting went on, before we had more questions.
Yeah.
We'll give it a little bit of time so we have more.
Well, he was concerned that people didn't know about the meetings, and
Or not even know what's going on.
So he's not gonna find that formula that you're looking for with our local school board? That formula is mandated by state law.
which one?
The evaluation, the 55-45, you're gonna have to get it from the Department of Education. Yeah, you are.
But
So
they calculate the numbers, don't they, Charlie?
So
At
the
school?
state calculates the enrollment numbers and they take the property evaluations, and typically they weight it. And you can find it on the Department of Education website, right? My wife's in a master's program, so I've gotten all these classes recently, and one of them is student finance and law. And the state weights the evaluations higher than enrollment. So if you've got a much larger property evaluation, and it's primarily because of a lake typically, then the weighted average is always going to be steep towards the higher property evaluation with a lower enrollment. That's just the way it is. So the higher your property values are, even with a lower enrollment, you're always going to pay a higher tax. But you're going to pay that similarly if you join any school district. So unless you're going to, the only way to avoid that is to farm out all your kids to different locations.
Just go tuition.
No, you just not a member of an RSU.
Right, which means there's no obligation of that RSU that that your kids are going to a superintendent agreement with. There's no obligation on that RSU to provide transportation. You said Madison sends a bus, they send it to pick up the kids at a stop. Everybody brings their kids there, right? So there's a lot of burdens that are placed on the parents, right? So these are all things, but all that'll come, you'll get all that from the Department of Education, they don't know what that evaluation is on the school board.
But if we don't join an RSU, we simply pay, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, if we don't join an RSU, we simply pay a tuition fee. And you can negotiate, as a town, we could negotiate with Bingham or Carrabeck or whoever for a flat fee per student to pick them up and drop them off, or
Well,
whatever.
if you can negotiate the transportation into your contract,
Sure,
right?
Get into it.
But then what happens is the RSU that you're negotiating with will raise that valuation because now they've got to provide the transportation.
That may or may not be true. I don't know, but we can certainly, it's
It's a good question.
you can negotiate it, so.
Who controls the tuition rate?
The state,
The state,
The state does,
The minimum tuition rate.
yeah.
the minimum. But can the RSU put a higher price on the tuition?
Well,
Over what the
so-
state's
so-
recommending?
So the state will authorize paying more money based on, and this is a slippery slope, right? The state will authorize paying more money to the local RSUs based on the number of special needs students they have. So if you've got more IEP students or 504 students, the amount of money that the state will pay goes up, however, it gets capped, right? They set that.
So, on the main DOE's website, so it's out there, since 2012, there've been 42 towns that have withdrawn from their existing district. Not one has just withdrawn and gone, nowhere. Out of the 42, 39 started a new school district.
Like Athens.
And then 2 joined an existing school district, like Starks, and only 1 became an unorganized territory. So a question would be, why? There's 42, just 42, which I'd say just, that's a really high number, since 2012, but not one of them just withdrew to go nowhere.
I have an answer to the question, other than if all of those other communities were like Athens, that had an elementary school, and they had to form something to keep that elementary school.
No.
Now, Caraton,
No, but I would encourage you guys to look at that information.
Yeah.
It's on the DOE website, all of the documents are there. All you have to do is Google, towns that have withdrawn in Maine. And it's got the documentation and it shows the newly negotiated contract for their creation of a district and the negotiated contract if they were joining a district. And it has the breakdown of cost. And Kevin, thank you for bringing up the fact that we would have to hire a special ed director. So I think it could potentially be misinformation to say that we're going to cut taxes by doing this. Because until we have the breakdown, we don't know until negotiations are done. We could say we're going to withdraw from 74 and not know the bottom dollar line until the deed is already done.
exactly right, that's why.
And our taxes could be the same or higher. So there's no promise of lowering taxes by making this move.
That's
And
why
I'm-
we're looking at numbers. That's
Right.
why we're trying to do some due diligence.
Yeah.
To see, and thank you for pointing that out, that of the number that have withdrawn and then reorganized. That's
Yeah.
pretty interesting stuff.
It is interesting, and it was something that after last week's meeting, it kind of got my mind rolling, like how many others have done this. And I don't know why there's not information prior to 2012, because I'm sure that it has occurred, maybe not. But, I would ask this committee to look into the cost of, Kevin mentioned, you're looking at a special ed director that would have to be hired, superintendent, an assistant to the superintendent, busing, transportation, and then also looking at the numbers of students that are receiving special education services. And, all it would take would be, one child moving in that has a lot of special education services to bump up taxes even more. So, please look at all options and what the potential cost is going to be. And I'm not saying that what is happening now is right, and the valuation, and unfortunately, we don't have control over that. But, and I understand taxes are steep. Every year, that we pay taxes have increased because it's going to education. And even before becoming a parent, I had no problem doing that. In my 20s, when I owned a house and taxes increased, I knew it was right there on the tax bill. It went up because of education. I have no problem. And I understand that there are people in our community that are living on fixed incomes. My grandmother's 92 and lives on a fixed income. And thankfully she has family that helps support her. And that's not the case for everybody. So I understand that we're looking at all angles of this. but I think that it's really, really important to look at the cost and also the ramifications that this could have, you know, on children who have no voice.
Yep, go ahead.
My question was around potential savings. You're saying possibly in excess, let's say $1 million, and let's say the select board decided not to use any of that money and it went back to the taxpayer. What would that actually look like per household, per individual in savings? We're talking $50, $200 a year, $5 a year, $1,000 a year? I mean, how much are we actually talking about per individual? That's something I would like, question I would like to answer.
Keep this in mind. Right now, today, is the best it's ever going to be. Because the valuation's going to keep going up, and the students are going to keep going down. I don't know what the bottom line is on the students. No one can predict that. I'm only telling you that has been the trend, down, down, down.
Of course.
And I can also tell you that when the second half of Emden gets revalued, and the way the camps are selling now, I just looked on Zillow the other night. Oh my God Almighty, they're still going up.
Well, it isn't even just the places on the lake anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, that, you know, that started in COVID, that you started to look at prices even off lake, and it got, you know, unbelievable.
And it's not just the buildings. 10 years ago, I could buy a woodlot for $350 an acre. Today, it's $2,000, $2,500 for a woodlot, and that's going to drive it up. Right over there.
I got two comments. One, people need to consider at what cost are they willing to go to have parents lose their say in the school district because they will not have the school board there for them to talk to. They'll lose all representation. And also, we talked about Emden going from 200 million to 400 million and how that's going to jack up our percentage. But all the other towns are going up as well, so.
They don't have license, not all of them.
Right, but their $150,000 homes 4 years ago are all $300,000 homes now, so they're going up as well.
So I have a couple of questions. What percentage of Emden's taxes and budget is going towards education as a whole?
56%.
56. What is the Maine state average?
Not that high.
It's high.
It's, I believe, and I don't know, within the, maybe this was 2020, it was 48%. So really, I mean, we're high, but we're not like, it's not some ridiculously high. There's towns paying more and there's towns paying less, and that's for a reason. It's called community. So I've heard a lot of talk about numbers, and everything has been about numbers. But it's also important to consider community. George and I were living out west. We could have lived in California, Colorado. I went to college in Boston, anywhere. We chose to move back here because small schools, tight communities, and I know almost every person in this room. You know, that's important to me, especially as I'm raising children here. So we rely, Emden has closed their school. We rely on these other towns for community. And with that being said, like Solon Rec always took Emden kids. In the past 2 years, Amy and I have, and some other parents have kind of stepped up and requested money from Emden, and Emden has been great about approving that. So now we're trying to change it to a Cobra Rec program. I know we depend on Anson for, you know, Anson events, parades, and all of that. It's important to me that you consider the impact of community and how we've depended on these other towns throughout decades when Emden decided to close school, and they picked up our children and took them in like their own and never asked questions. And you talked a lot about Caratunk. Do you know how many kids are in Caratunk? Because you compared us to them.
3, I think.
Yeah, 3. So you can't really compare us to Caratunk. I mean, it's very different. Apples and oranges there. We have 93 kids. They have, yeah, maybe 7 under 18. And have you considered anything else to lower taxes? Have you looked at any other ways?
Not my job. That's his
Well,
job.
you brought,
No, wait a
you
minute,
created this
I
committee.
have.
You have.
I have, and I find it interesting. I going where you're going here. I see I was on the school board for a while. You don't see people show up at budget meetings and say, no, we don't want to build $125,000 building. We just need to get rid of some of the junk. We don't have people pull up, come to meetings and discuss that, right? So that's got to be a huge savings if people would simply show up and vote. Town meeting, what did we have at town meeting this year? 15 people, 20 people?
Town meeting was, the gym was full.
This year?
Yeah.
Last 2 years ago was full.
2 years
I
ago
was
it was
here, I
full. This
spoke.
year,
I spoke at the town meeting in March, and this gym was full.
That was because of the wharf.
It
Because
was
of what?
part of the wharf.
Oh, the dock.
Oh, the dock issue. That was a special meeting, though, wasn't it?
That was a different.
But my point is, if there's 500 voters here and we got 50 that show up at town meeting,
50.
yeah, I don't think there are 50, to be honest with you, that showed up. What's that?
I counted 18 people here plus yours.
No, at the town, we're talking the town meeting in March. Were you there?
Yes.
Yeah. So if people don't show up, you can't control costs. So show up and vote.
Betty's got a question.
I don't have a question, I have a statement. You said that Emden closed their school, and that is not true. Absolutely not true. It was a blue ribbon school. It had some of the highest
I went to school, I
test
don't know.
rates.
I would come
My
to
kid
the
went to
course.
school here.
Yeah.
So you're not
It
telling
breaks
me
my
they
heart
knew.
that it closed.
We did not close the school. We
No, we
did
didn't.
not.
I know.
And so
The district did.
the district closed our school, what, second? Was New
They
Portland
closed New
first?
Portland first.
New Portland was first, and then we were second. And it was immediately closed after we became a blue ribbon school. Something wasn't right.
Yeah, it's called local politics, right? You can't get them to
Yes.
close, you can't get them to close Garrett Skank now either. Like, that place is just sucking money out of the district. Like, I've been to plenty of school board meetings, nothing gets done, honestly. Like, we've been at, so I came, the premise for me coming here was, and I've had some conversation with Kayla about this, is I was wondering what the premise of pulling out of the district was. Because if you want to talk about the level of education that your kids are getting, you want to talk about where our statistics are in comparison to the rest of the state, I'm in. But the premise of lowering taxes, I've been around long enough, and I'm not the oldest person in here, but one thing I know is your taxes are never going down. You're never getting your money back, so we're just talking about redistributing wealth. That's all we're talking about. State, local, the town taxes. I've been in a New Hampshire school that pulled out of a school district. And New Hampshire has the highest property taxes that go to the school systems.
They do not have an income tax or a sales tax.
That's all
Yeah,
right.
but-
It's all property tax.
Yeah, right, you pay $10,000 worth of the tax evaluation is 56, 60 on the 1,000, you know what I mean? It's not a little mill rate. And there's no way you don't get your money back, and he's right. Even if that $1 million gets distributed, it's 50 to 200 bucks per person. That's it, I was under the impression that this was about something else, but I'm a little bit, I guess I'm just gonna keep coming. and
It's more
listen.
about where it's going to go to. It's more about, it's not as much about the $1 million, it's about, it could be a lot more money, and most likely in the next 3 or 4 years.
What about the kids,
evaluation
though?
change is gonna go through the roof.
Who said that?
What about the kids?
What about them? What tier is SAD 74 in terms of education?
3, they're a level 3
A
school.
level 3 school?
The
Yeah.
CCS is level 3,
Yeah.
CHS is a tier 1.
What's that?
Tier 1 is CHS, CCS is a tier 1.
Yeah,
But I think they're evaluated differently.
yeah, they are evaluated differently.
This isn't a question, but I do want all of the committee members to consider the impact on the community and families. We rely on summer programs at Solon and in Anson, and those are really important for parents that work 5 days a week during the day, after-school programs. I know lots of people who in Emden that rely on the district for their employment and source of income, and I hope to be one of those people soon. I'm at the tail end of my master's in education. with the hopes of being in the school. So those are things I really, you can't, it's hard to put on paper, but incredibly important to this tiny little beautiful town and all the little kids that live here.
At the last meeting, I don't know who said it, but they said, I don't care how high our taxes go. Well, when you say something like that, you're not thinking about the people, the older people that are in town, that have been here for, you know, their families have been here for generations. They can't handle, I just put them up, you know? That's not right for those people. You've got to be more equitable and think about everybody in the town, not just your group. The whole town needs to be thought about.
Couldn't the same thing could be said to everybody though, right? Like that's, I could say, well, you're not thinking about me, and you could say, I'm not thinking about you.
But when you say,
but how financially responsible are we?
right,
Period. That's the end
That's
result here, right? Like, how financially responsible is the town, right? Do we beat our road commissioner up over how much money we pay him every year?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, literally all the time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, and Larry's right, like, I've been to a lot of school board meetings, and there's nobody that goes to those. Nobody that goes to them. Go ahead.
I just have a statement, driving around in the boat on the lake, you can see the properties, the old mom and pop camps that are getting bought, and they're getting remodeled into these $500, $600 million properties. That's what's driving this number up. So, I mean, we're gonna penalize the school board or the district over Paul building a, what is your property worth? I can only imagine over $1 million on the lake. So that's building our, okay, sorry. Okay, sorry. There's values on the lake that have skyrocketed, and that is
Transparency.
driving this rate for the district.
This is personal. It's about our kids. This is personal.
And I know, it is our kids.
None of you have kids. It's personal.
I had 2 boys.
Yeah,
What?
but they're not, you didn't try to
What's the problem?
close their school with
You
it.
have kids?
Easy, take a deep
You're
breath.
staring at me the whole time with this glaring look because I'm making comments. What's the problem? You don't have kids in the district?
I've got grandkids in the district.
Awesome.
I had kids in the district. I was in the district.
Awesome.
Time out, time out.
Really.
Don't
We're
glare
done
at
for
me.
the
I don't
night.
know what
Just
your
take a
deal
deep
is.
breath here.
We're done for the night. We're going down the wrong direction now, so we're done for the night.
Transparency. You
So
said that from
we're
the
done.
beginning.
Next week. Okay, everybody have a wonderful 2 weeks. We'll see you back here. And we'll try to
Smoke and mirrors is what it looks like.